A wobbly warped pan is annoying, unsafe, and won't heat evenly since it doesn't sit flat on a cooktop or oven rack. Warping most commonly occurs with baking sheets and frying pans, but it can happen with any cookware. The good news is that there's a simple solution. In this video, I explain how to prevent your pans from warping, and if your pans are already warped, I explain a simple and easy way to fix them. Rinsing a pan in cold water while it's still piping hot is one of the most common causes of warping. Although it's tempting to cool down and clean your pans immediately after cooking, do not rinse or soak them in cold water while they're still hot. Doing so will result in thermal shock, which is when a material is exposed to a rapid change in temperature, causing it to expand or contract unevenly. When the stress or shock is stronger than the material, it causes cracking, deformation, and warping. An everyday example of thermal shock is putting an ice cube in a warm glass of water. Almost immediately, the ice cube makes a popping sound and cracks. Cracking occurs because the outside layer of the ice cube warms up and expands much faster than the inside. The same thing happens with cookware. When cold water comes into sudden contact with one side of a hot pan, the pan rapidly and unevenly contracts, which causes warping. When a pan cools down more gradually, it's less likely to warp because it contracts evenly across the pan. Warping due to thermal shock occurs so often that almost all cookware manufacturers warn customers not to expose a hot pan to cold water. They also make it clear in their warranties that you're not covered if your pans warp from thermal shock. Instead of rinsing your hot pan with cold water, let it cool down for 10 to 15 minutes, then wash it with warm water. Cooking at extremely high temperatures is another common cause of warped pans, and the science behind it is the same as thermal shock. When an overheated pan comes into contact with a piece of cold meat, water, or deglazing liquid, it's much more likely to warp than a pan heated on medium because the difference in temperature between the pan and the cold ingredients is more significant. Even if a piping hot pan is left to cool down on its own, sometimes the difference in temperature between the pan and the cool air can be enough to cause warping. Also, a pan doesn't need to come into contact with something cold to become warped. It can warp just by heating up too fast. For situations that require high heat like browning or searing, preheat the pan gradually on medium for a minute or two before turning the heat higher, and take the meat out of the fridge at least 10 minutes before cooking so it's not as cold when it hits the pan. Although less common, another cause of warping is a mismatch between the size of the pan and the burner. The bottom of your pan shouldn't be more than an inch larger than the burner. If you use a large pan on a small burner, the center of the pan heats up faster than the edges. The center expands from the heat while the edges stay cooler and don't expand as much. This uneven expansion can cause the pan to warp. This issue is an even greater risk on induction burners because they heat the pan so rapidly. A simple solution is to only use large pans on large burners and small pans on small burners. If, for some reason, none of your burners are big enough for your pan, use extra caution and heat the pan slowly so the entire pan heats up more evenly. When using baking sheets in the oven, spread the food evenly across the pan's surface. Avoid leaving large bare spots, as these areas will heat faster than portions covered with food. This uneven heating can cause warping. To simulate this issue, I placed food on just one side of a baking sheet and placed it in a preheated oven. As you can see, the pan warped significantly. When the food is spread out evenly, the pan is less likely to warp. Every pan, regardless of the brand, can warp. In fact, many cookware manufacturers intentionally design their pans with a concave bottom so there's room for minor expansion without the pan becoming wobbly on the cooktop. That said, pans with thin walls are more likely to warp than those with thick walls. When exposed to rapid temperature changes, thicker pans do a better job absorbing the expansion and contraction within their walls. Thin pans have less material, so their shape is more likely to change when they expand. Thick pans also conduct heat more evenly than thin pans, and as we know, uneven heating and cooling causes warping. This problem relates to all types of cookware, but warping is almost unavoidable with thin baking sheets. When this happens, the pan doesn't sit flat on the oven rack, and food doesn't cook evenly. This isn't usually a huge issue, but it becomes more problematic when baking cookies or other delicate foods. The solution to this problem is simple. Buy higher quality pans with thicker construction. A lot of people recommend Nordic ware baking sheets. I haven't tested them yet, but I am a fan of this Williams-Sonoma baking sheet and haven't had any issues with it warping. For frying pans and other stovetop cookware, Look for pans that are around 3 millimeters thick or more. Brands like Made In, All-Clad, Heritage Steel, and DeMeyer all make thick and sturdy pans that aren't prone to warping. Now you know how to prevent pans from warping, but how do you fix a pan that's already warped? Before you do anything, contact the manufacturer. Most cookware warranties don't cover warping since it's almost always a result of misuse, but if you plead your case, there's a chance they'll send you a new pan. If that doesn't work, you can fix your pan using these two methods. The best way to fix a warped baking sheet is to simply bend the pan back into shape. Lay the pan on a flat surface so you can see exactly how it's warped. Then hold the pan under your arm and use your hands to put pressure on the corners and in the middle until it bends back into shape. Check to ensure it's flat and repeat the process until it's not wobbling much. It's difficult to get it perfectly flat, but you should be able to get it close. You need to take a different approach with thicker fry pans or sauté pans. First, find a hard surface where you can lay the body of the pan flat without the handle getting in the way. Do not use a kitchen countertop, wood staircase, or any other surface that can be easily damaged. I'm using 2 cinder blocks on my basement floor. Place a towel down to pad the surface and prevent any additional damage to the pan. Have another towel ready to place on top of the pan. Next, heat the pan on the stove on low for a few minutes to make it more malleable. Once the pan is warm, place it on the towel so it's completely flat. If the cooking surface is warping toward the ceiling, place the pan on the towel the same way you'd place it on the stove. This pan is warped downward like a bowl, so I'm placing it on the towel face down. Place the other towel over the upwards facing side of the pan to protect it. Then place a wooden block on top of the towel. Hit the wooden block with a hammer or mallet until the pan bends back into shape. Don't hit the towel or pan directly with the hammer. Doing that can cause more damage and leave dimples in the pan. The wooden block spreads the force of the hammer across the pan so that it flattens the entire surface without damaging it. You may need to hit different parts of the block to smooth everything out. Here's the before, and here's the after. One major caveat to keep in mind is that once a pan warps, its structure is weakened, and therefore it's more likely to warp again in the future. So while this method will certainly flatten the pan and make it usable, there's no guarantee it won't warp again. The best thing you can do is understand and avoid the common causes to prevent warping in the first place. If this video was helpful, check out this video where I explain how to prevent food from sticking to stainless steel cookware. And for more videos like this, click the logo to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.